Hello and welcome to another edition of Spotlight on African Continental Free Trade Area with me, Jones Awuah, and Sora Yago.
On today's show, we'll be looking at the benefits of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and the press briefing on its implementation status held by His Excellency Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area.
Yes, His Excellency Wamkele Mene did answer a lot of questions, so make sure you stick around for that. Plus, we'll be looking at Afro Champions Initiative and their collaboration with the AfCFTA to raise $1 trillion for investment framework.
During the virtual press conference held on January 12, 2021, His Excellency Wamkele Mene spoke with optimism across the length and breadth of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Wamkele Mene addressed with boldness criticism faced by the African Continental Free Trade Agreement in relation to the establishment of the instruments.
I know that in some parts of the world, we get criticism. We are criticized, we are told that we are rushing things, that we're actually not quite ready. But I want to ask those who hold that view, tell me of a trade agreement where all countries are ready at the same time. I don't know it. I have never heard of a trade agreement where in that particular arrangement, every single country is ready on day one. Not to my knowledge, it doesn't exist. And so I regret that as Africans, we are held to a much higher standard for how trade agreements should operate in practice. We negotiated this agreement in record time. Yes, of course, we're still continuing with negotiations, but there are other arrangements that have taken much longer than us to negotiate and to enter into force. We're not doing it because we want to prove anything to anybody outside of the African continent. We're doing this because it is in Africa's interest to have an integrated market.
Now, many people like to compare the AfCFTA to the EU, and rightly so. However, what a lot of people seem to forget is that the EU has been in existence way longer than the AfCFTA. When the EU first started, there were about 6 countries that signed up a treaty. And those countries were France, West Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg, which I said they signed a treaty in Rome to establish economic community. Now, if we look at how the AfCFTA have started, 34 countries have now ratified the agreement. If we compare that to the EU, which it was only 6 countries that started at the time, the African Continental Free Trade Area has started on a bigger scale compared to that of the EU when it first started. So I think we need to put things into perspective.
Jones, we cannot talk about criticism without mentioning the similar challenges that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is facing with the other trade blocs. So other trade blocs have encountered some challenges. For example, the implementation is complex and poses significant adjustments. And finally, there's also a general fear of losing control and sense of loss of identity across segments of the population within the continent. So despite these possible challenges, Jones, this is a good news. It is important to note that the benefits of the continent will surpass the risk if the trade agreement is successful. Africa will be more self-sustainable if it increases trade with itself and creates value addition systems for its products.
Just because the initiative has started doesn't mean everything is perfect. No. We have to start from somewhere. And the 1st of January 2021 was the beginning of the journey that lays ahead of the AfCFTA. So we must all get on board to support it and make sure it comes to fruition.
There seems to be some misinformation about the movement of people under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. His Excellency Wamkele Mene explained what the agreement allows regarding the movement of people.
Now, in respect of movement of persons, The protocol on the movement of persons is not part of the AfCFTA. It is a standalone protocol. It is a standalone instrument which has not yet entered into force. So it is not yet legally binding as an instrument. All I would say is that we can only do what the agreement enables us to do, what the AfCFTA, which is law, binding law, what it enables us to do. We are not able to move beyond what the agreement has provided. The agreement does not make provision for free movement of persons. The agreement, however, does make provision for the movement of business persons, and that negotiation of identifying the categories of the movement of business persons is the subject of negotiations in the context of trade in services. So we are enabling movement of business persons in the context of what the agreement provides for, of what the agreement allows. We don't have the legal authority to move beyond that.
I think this press briefing was the most informative press briefing so far from the AfCFTA Secretariat, especially on this particular issue, the freedom of movement. And His Excellency was very clear on the distinction between free movement of business persons and free movement of people. The AfCFTA does allow free movement of business persons, does not allow free movement of people. There's a clear distinction. Now it's up to the heads of state of the African Union to talk about the free movement of people, not the AfCFTA. The AfCFTA does not have that power to implement the free movement of people. And I understand why many people would think the free movement of people will automatically come with the AfCFTA. That's because a lot of people compare the AfCFTA to that of the European Union. But one thing people tend to forget is that the European Union is a political and economic union, which has right now, as it stands, 26 members. Sorry, because Britain has left the European Union. The AfCFTA is simply designed for economic integration.
Yes, you are right, Jones. This is the stand-alone agreement for the movement of people. So we need a significant work and investment in border governance to address the limited or non-existent capabilities of the state to effectively differentiate goods or genuine mobility from bad mobility, I could say, such as trafficking, smuggling, and irregular migration. And it's also important to add that at the moment, we only have 2 countries in Africa which offers visa-free access to all Africans. Those countries are Seychelles and Benin.
Now it's time for a bit of poetry. As we all know, poetry always moves you. And when it comes to the African story, my goodness, be rest assured that it will pierce through your soul.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the days when the Nile drank the Nyanza from the earthen bowels of the Bantu heartland, this land, this Africa, sang and danced a beautiful song, a song of rhythm, a song of intercourse. It was a song of seduction, salt and gold, rare wood and unique spices, woven garments, and 1,000 artifacts of all the cultures of Africa. Wove the lyrics of this song, entrancing all the adventures of all kinds, to find their root here or perish elsewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, the songs of abundance have sounded countlessly across the trade routes, and with each sounding, The songs and dance and the rhythms have announced the endless blessings of this continent to the rest of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, ching ching jabalanga, ching ching jabalanga. From the greatest pilgrimage of the greatest Mansa, with his gold-laden camels, astride the holy lands of the East, to the extraordinary bounties of the kings of Congo. The song of a continent rose in pitch. The song of a continent stood. The song of a continent rose and touched all the skies. All of a sudden, the beat changed. The song had become a cacophony, and the beautiful tunes had become a lamentation of abuse and the deaths from...
This was a wonderful performance, Jones. Every chosen words, every sound, every gesture, every facial expression in this poetry performance gives an overview of our history, of the history of our continent, Mother Africa, highlighting the exceptional riches of Africa, including gold and other minerals, the diversity of our textile industry. On this note, let's take a break.
It's time for a quick break, and when we come back, we will look at the benefits of the AfCFTA.
Plus, we'll find out more about the Afro Champions initiative and much more. We'll be right back.